Hello again, my name's Vince, and this is episode 3 of the YouTube Fixers, the series in which various different YouTubers around the world will be showcased, showing what they do best, fixing things. So some will be amateurs, some will be professionals, but we all enjoy it. Now, to kick off episode 3, the first YouTuber is Scott from Defpoms Electronics and Repair, and he's coming all the way from New Zealand. And in this particular episode here, he's got more of a simple fix. Normally Scott gets very involved in his fixes, but on this one he's looking at a faulty remote control for an air conditioning unit. I think it's like a heat pump type unit, and what happened is it's been dropped, and since it's been dropped it's stopped working. So here we have Scott.
Hi, I'm Scott with Defpom. Thank you much, Vince, for allowing me to provide a video for the channel. For those of you that don't know me, I do a lot of electronics repairs, mailbag reviews, that kind of thing, all electronics based. So if you're interested in electronic stuff especially, come check out my channel. My link will be down below, provided by Vince in the description. The sort of thing I normally do, this is a reference board out of a Datron calibrator. I buy test gear which is broken, just to repair it, to do videos about it. So what I provide today is a bit of a different video to that. It's not this kind of complex thing, it's something more normal. It's a bit simpler. I think you'll still find it interesting. Catch you later. I've been asked to have a look at this remote control, which apparently isn't working. Apparently it fell off a sofa, it didn't go after that, and they put new batteries in and it still didn't go. Let's see if we can actually get any life out of this thing. Well, the most sensible thing to do is to assume the batteries are bad. If this is the batteries, then this video is not going to go anywhere. That battery's dead. The battery's dead too. Let's put some new batteries in it. Could this be bad batteries? That'd be hilarious, wouldn't it? Still dead. Can I feel some heat in here? Or is it just my imagination? That battery's actually getting hot. 1.35, 1.38. Okay, those are working. That battery's getting warm. I wasn't imagining it. There is something wrong with this. It is shorted out inside. Right, we've got a problem. Like it didn't catch fire. Right, how do we get into this thing? 3 screws. Apparently it was just on a sofa and it fell off, and then after that it didn't go anymore. Something could have dislodged inside. Maybe we'll try and unclip this thing. Spudger. Actually, can you hear that? There's definitely something floating around in there. Ah, a bit of plastic. That's not what I was hoping for. There you go. Gets that off. So why on earth would this be shorting out? Curious, there's nothing really in here. At least not on this side of the board. Okay, so that piece that fell out, that little plastic piece, is a mounting hole which is supposed to be glued to the bottom of the casing here. So that's what actually holds that screw between this casing and the other board. We have to glue that back on afterwards if we can get it working. Come on, pop out. It's got these little wire attachments here for the battery. Let's try and pop this out. It should just pop out. Let's go some tweezers. There's the screen. Let's just take this out of the way. It's detached. It's got those little rubber membranes, zipper strip things. What worries me is it could have melted slightly from getting hot, you know, and bedded itself in. It's kind of moving, but not completely. Oh, now I've nudged it one and bent it a little bit. Okay, that's free. That does not want to come out. That must have melted itself in there a little bit. Actually, yeah, I think I can see. Yeah, it has actually melted slightly. You can see it's kind of embedded in plastic there to the right hand side of that little strip. Just there. Kind of in there, so I'm going to try and pull that out. Stretch it outwards and try and release it that way. Managed to get it dislodged. This is what's on the other side. So what on earth is causing this thing to be dead? Got some discoloration around here because the button's being used. There's a foam pad. Let's lift this off. It goes behind the display. So something, somewhere, is busted. So there's all the controller section of the board. Now there's a few capacitors and resistors and stuff. Resistors wouldn't be a problem. There could potentially be a shorted capacitor, or the chip itself could be blown. Shorted is usually a sign of a bad cap. So we'll look for a bad capacitor, see if we can find any shorted caps and go from there. Actually, something's just occurred to me. When I had it over this way, those springs are touching each other, right? On the board. I've got it this way up, and I go across between the two springs, and there was no short. Sort the polarity around. 0.5 diode drop. There is no short. So maybe what the problem was is this spring here was shorting against itself. Let's just check for that, shall we? So I've got this placed back in, I've got the display back in, I also have to hold it so it's pressing against the zebra strip. Now these aren't touching right now, I've adjusted the positioning slightly so it's not touching. Those are in there, still not touching. Let's fold it over, hold the strip, and we've got a display again. That's what it was. Same one with these battery terminals down here. That makes it an easy fix, doesn't it? So because of all the dirt and stuff on here as well, I might as well give this a clean, make it all nice again before I put it back together. But this will just be a bit of alcohol, gentle wipe down with a clean piece of paper like this. Nice Kimtech wipes, for example. Just nice and gentle. That should do it. Don't want to scrub it, I just want to get the debris off and get the dirt off it. So I've given these things a wash, pulled them apart, actually washed them. I'm going to refit everything back together again. Junk on there, get that out. Was it on the back? Might be on the back of the screen. It is on the back of the screen. Okay, put that back in there. Put the foam back on. Put in the membrane here. I've cleaned all these button pads up. I've got a bit of alcohol there and just gently wiped them all with a bit of tissue. Just to clean all those up as well. So you washed it as well. Actually gave it a bath, get the debris off it. All we've got to do really now is fix up this board and clean up all the mess off this. Bit of alcohol. We've got this. I'm just going to use this really gently on it. I'm just going to really gently just give it a bit of wipe. Like that. Not scrubbing it, I'm just rubbing it with that. A bit darker there, maybe you can see it. This is the main one here, which is really, really dirty just here. So obviously this one gets used a lot. Yep, still dirt coming off. Okay, I think that'll do. I don't overdo it. That's certainly a lot better than it was. So now we can put this back together. Also this shorted out on itself somehow from bad design, I suppose, because they're passing right next to each other. And they are kind of separated. So I'll do something there, I'll make sure they stay separated so it doesn't happen again. So let's reinstall the screws that hold this PCB in. I always get a couple lined up before I tighten them all the way down. That way you avoid a misalignment. Now obviously you've still got to fix that little plastic piece that's broken off the back of the casing. So by rights, if I put the batteries in now, it should work. Yep, there we go. You have a display. Excellent. So start, stop, yep, that's working. Temperature adjustment, that's working. Fan modes, that's working. Normal modes, auto, yep, that's working. Sleep, yeah, so it looks like the buttons are all working. So what I'm going to do now is get this little plastic piece and we'll glue this back into the casing. So there's actually a bit of a witness mark. See that on the side there, it's got this little flange on the side, this little rib. Now if you look in here, you can probably just see that it was attached just here as a bracing to help make it stronger. So all I've really got to do is just get that there and stick it like this. Okay. So I'm going to put some glue on this, I'll put it on the casing and I'll put this in place, wiggle it in place and it will bed down to where it's supposed to be, I hope. Okay, let's set that on there. This glue just about had it. Now I'm going to use my finger to line it so I can feel when it drops into place. Looks about right. But from the other side, it looks about right too. So I'm just going to press it a bit more, make sure it's bedded right down, leave that to dry, then we can put it back together. So something else I'm going to do to help reduce the chance of it potentially breaking again in the future and shorting out again is I'm just going to put some of my liquid electrical tape down here in between these two pieces, so at the very least it will keep them separated. So that should at least mean that in future, if that were to happen again, they won't be able to touch. So let's clip it back together. The glue's still drying, but it's okay because it'll be actually pushed into place by that stud there. There we go, it's clipped together. So I'm going to put the screws back in. I'm not going to put that one in yet until the glue's had a chance to go off. Always when you do plastics, turn it backwards until it drops into a thread. I can't find this one dropping into a thread though. Otherwise you end up cutting a second thread and then a third thread and it ends up chewing it out. But if you go backwards first, like that, there we go, that drops in. That's now gone in. So this one I won't put in, like I said, until the glue's had a chance to dry properly. But I think that'll be good then. One fixed remote. Subscribe, click the bell icon, comment down below, and I'll catch you next video. Bye.
Thank you, Scott. A nice repair and some nice tips along the way as well, especially with the backing up the screw thread before screwing down so it goes into the existing thread that's already there. Saves ripping it out if you have to undo and do up the screw 3 or 4 times. So hopefully that remote control will go on to work for many years to come. Now, if any of you are wondering what Scott brushed on at the end there, the black stuff, is liquid tape. So it's really useful. It's like a brush-on insulation. So if you can't get a heat shrink on there, something like this is invaluable to have in the toolbox for the rare occasions that you do need to use it. Now on that remote control there, it looked like drop damage had caused possibly those wires to short together, and that will lead me on to the repair that I'm going to be showing you in this video here, which was also drop damage related. So I got a job lot of John Lewis radios that I was working on, The reason I managed to fix this one so quick, and the reason it's featured in this one, is because I'd previously already done on my channel a black version of the same radio that had the same fault, so I could go exactly to the right point on this one here. So here you see me fixing a drop damage DAB clock radio. So with this one here, I've got 6 volts going into the back of it via this little DC jack here. I've got it plugged into my bench power supply, and there's nothing happening at all. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see what is wrong with this one. It doesn't feel overly loose at the back. Anyway, let's give it a wiggle. Press on. There's nothing happening whatsoever. So let's take it apart and see if we can see why it's not getting any power. So we've got 4 screws to undo around the back. Right, so this pulls out here now. So I suppose to begin with we should see if we've got power coming through here, because this is the jack here where the power comes in. We should have 6 volts on here now. Just go to volts DC, and we've got 6 volts there. So now I suppose we need to see where that travels to, and then measure, see if we've got 6 volts any further than that. If you have a look here, can you see there's a little bump here? I wonder if it's broken here. So it's fallen, had an impact here, and then it's got a break here. From there it travels just under the glue, and it goes, yeah, it definitely goes to that one there. So what we should do is see if we've got continuity between here and here. If we have, we then know that that break has nothing to do with it, that little bump. If we haven't, then maybe it's as simple as there's a hairline break just here. So I'm just on continuity. And we haven't got anything. Can't hear anything there. So let's give it a little scrape just here. Let's zoom in. Right, so I've just scraped it just there. So now let's go between here and here. There we go. We've got continuity between there and there, but we haven't got continuity between there and here. So we've just got a tiny little break just here. This bit here. Not where I scraped, this bit I'm scraping now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape it back, and then I am just going to solder past the break. So what must happen is when it drops, the DC jack in the back must knock this forward, and then that shot goes straight through and just shatters that one there. So I say on this one it's probably quite a common problem. Just going to get some IPA and give that a clean. So there we go, you can see it nice and clearly now. So this I think is the negative side of the DC jack, and if you have a look here, there's a break here, so you can see this is fine here, but then look at that, it's going up there. See there? Right, let's get a tiny bit of flux on there. I've got my soldering iron set to 390 degrees Celsius. I've got a tiny bit of flux on there. So let's get some solder and pop it on there. That'd be much easier if I undone it all, but this saves me having to take apart the front screen if I can do it without getting rid of these ribbon cables. Right, I think that's going to have bridged it. So now let's get our meter, put it back onto continuity, and now we go between this one here, this one here, and now here. There we go. So you can see now I've gone over the faulty part there. Let's give it a little clean up. So all I have to do now is pop it back together. Let's plug it in, but we still need to clean it up and get rid of all this sticky tape here. You can see it's gone right away from the aerial, wrapped right the way round to here. So I'm going to plug it in there. And let's turn on my bench power supply. And let's see if it comes to life. There you go. Excellent. And it's got the correct time as well. 6:55. So that's a good thing, because this is a clock radio with DAB. It automatically sets the time, so I haven't got to change this now due to the daylight savings. So yeah, let me just clean it up and it'll be all finished. There we have it, all finished, and it all appears to be working fine. Turn it on here and it works on DAB and FM. So this is DAB.
She documented the lives of her first
and we've got
students.
FM here as well. There we go. So for the sake of spending about 20 minutes of time and about 1 or 2 pennies worth of solder, we have something which wasn't working and landfill into something which is completely working perfectly and in really, really good condition, just for that tiny bit of scraping back and just a dot of solder on it. So what a nice little simple fix. So there we have it. How easy was that fault there? Just a few pennies worth of solder. Now, I actually filmed that quite a while ago, but in hindsight now, really what I should have probably done is run a wire between the 2 solder joints, and then you see it would give it protection. Even if it was to drop again in the future, the chances are, even if that little bit that I repair was to shatter, at least the wire would still be intact. But you live and learn as you go along, and I'm learning all the time. I'm still very much an amateur in this game, but loving it all the same. So next up now we have Phil from the YouTube channel The Coder. Now Phil fixes games consoles for a living, so PlayStation 4s, Nintendo Switches, Xboxes, etc. And in this one here he's working on a PlayStation 4 that has a damaged HDMI port. Now he managed to pick this up, including the controller, locally for £40 UK. That is extremely cheap. So here we're going to have Phil doing what he does best.
Thank you, Vince. This PS4 has got a HDMI problem. If I just show you the actual port itself, you can see that the pins are all sticking out, so it definitely needs a new HDMI port. Hopefully it doesn't need an encoder as well, because that will cut into the cost of it. The encoders for these are around about £18 off AliExpress, so they're fairly expensive. So let's get this apart. I'm not going to try and turn it on because of the state of the HDMI port. I don't want to cause any further damage, but let's get this apart. Let's take off this HDMI port, put a new one on, and then we'll give it a test and hopefully get this working really, really cheap. So the first thing I need to do is just remove the casing screws. So all the screws on these are either a PH0 or a Torx T8 security bit. So the security bit is the ones with the pin in the middle. So this is going to need a good clean, and it's also going to need a new hard drive cover. I've got loads of hard drive covers lying around, so that's not really an issue. It's not very often I have to replace those. So let's just get the Torx bits out first. Okay, this APU clamp has been damaged in the past. It's a little bit bent. HDMI encoder looks like it's never been messed with. That's good. And there we go. Okay, so as you can see, it's the original HDMI port, the ones with the exposed pins on the back, and they've been pushed all the way through, which is fairly common on these. So the first thing I need to do is I need to get this HDMI port off. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab something to prop the board up so as it's just raised off the table, and I'm going to get my hot air gun, and I'm just going to use hot air on its own from underneath the board to heat up the area. I'm just going to hover the hot air over. I've got the hot air set to 480 degrees Celsius at 60% airflow, and I'm just going to hover this over and let the port drop out itself. I'm not going to use low melt solder. I'm not going to use any leaded solder. I'm just going to leave it to drop out on its own. Okay, just about ready to drop out, so I'm supporting the port with the tweezers just for like 10 seconds to make sure that all of the pins on the back are all melted before I let it fall out. There we go, and there's the old port removed. Let's have a look at the condition. Perfect, absolutely perfect. Next thing I want to do is I want to replace the solder that's on here, on these ground legs, with some leaded solder, because I want to clean out the holes so that I can drop a new port in without too much of an issue. Just add some flux, take some leaded solder. Okay, and now I'm just going to use a bit of hot air just to help me out. So let's get my solder sucker. And next I'm going to add some more leaded solder to the pads for the back pins. And I've just filled in another one of them holes by accident, so I'm going to clean that back out again. Okay, should be ready for a new port now. And let's pop under the scope. Okay, so let's just add some more flux and solder these pins to the board. I'm not worried about bridges for now. Okay, that's going to be a little bit too much solder. We'll just get rid of this excess. I'm missing a diode. Must have come off with the solder sucker. Let's put a diode on there first. Let me grab one off a donor board. There's a replacement diode from a donor board. Let's just clean up. So I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol with a toothbrush. There we go. Let's just test these, make sure that they're all nicely soldered. I think I might have a bridge between pin number 1 and 2. Pin number 1 is on the right hand side on these. Okay, they're all soldered. But is that a bridge between pin number 1 and 2? So pin number 2 is ground. So if I use my multimeter probe on a ground point, and yep, there is a bridge on there. So let me just fix that. So a tad of flux. Let's check again. And bridge gone. Cool. So let's just test the rest of the pins. Good. Okay, so now what I want to do is just solder these back legs, and then we should be good to put this back together for testing. So let's just add some flux. And that smoke that you can see coming off is just isopropyl alcohol burning away. Okay, so I'm going to add a blob of solder to each one. Then I'm going to use a bit of hot air just to assist me, because the ground pads do take a lot of heat. Okay, and we should be good to test. So this is isopropyl alcohol, what I've got in this bottle. This is no clean flux, but I still like to keep the board clean. Let's clean off this thermal paste. Add some brand new MX4 And I'm going to clean the rest of the housing. It's a little bit of a mess right now. So I'm going to strip all this down and basically just clean out the dust, get it looking nice and sparkly, and then we'll be ready to put this back in. And we're done. So just about ready to test this out now. I'll find a top case in a minute while I'm waiting for it to boot up. But for now, let's just see if it wants to work. And let's turn it on. It turns on. Ah, no free disc. Never mind. Is it going to go to a white light? Yes, it is. And there we go. So that appears to be working absolutely fine. That's awesome. Let's just test the disc real quick. Disc icon comes up. Fantastic. That is working beautifully. But that's going to be it for now. Thank you very much for watching this part of the episode. Vince, back to you, buddy.
Thank you, Phil. You make that look so easy to do, and I know it's not. All those pins on something the size of your fingernail, and at the same time the board's trying to suck all the heat out of the soldering iron, so it's hard for the solder to flow. It's certainly not an easy task, but you make it look easy, and that's because you're good at what you do. So massive thanks to Phil for taking part this week, and also Scott as well. Now hopefully, as viewers, you are enjoying this series. I know I'm enjoying it, and I know that the other YouTubers that are involved are enjoying it as well. So if you are enjoying it, think about leaving a thumbs up, maybe leave a comment if you like doing things like that, because then YouTube will see that as engagement, and hopefully they will push it slightly more to the wider audience. The more popular this series gets, the more people that will come on it, and then hopefully it will benefit everybody involved. Now if you like the channels that you've seen in this episode today, the links will be in the description down below, so check them out and subscribe. And until the next time, I will see you very soon. Hopefully episode 4 will be out next week. Take care, everyone.